Racist woman demands poor man leave first class. Then he pulls out his black card. A pleasant lullaby of engines and murmured talks could be heard emanating from the interior of the aircraft via the hum of the engines. There was a subtle aroma of champagne in the air, and the chairs in first class were upholstered in plush leather. There was also plenty of space. However, the peace was about to be disrupted for one of the passengers inside the vehicle. Eleanor Whitmore, a lady in her late 50s who had a purse that was securely clasped in her lap and a nicely coiffed blonde bob, had already made it very plain that she was not delighted about the person who was sitting next to her. Since the time he took a seat, she had been looking at him with a vaguely disdainful expression on her face. He seemed to be a young black male, maybe in his early 30s, and he was dressed in a casual manner, wearing a sweatshirt and trousers. The fact that he was traveling in first class was an insult to Eleanor, and it was most certainly a mistake. As she approached a flight attendant, she said, "Excuse me," in a tone that was dripping with arrogance. "It is possible that there is a mistake of some type. This individual is not supposed to be at this place. Could you kindly ensure that he is seated in the appropriate location?" An expression of astonishment could be seen on the face of the flight attendant, a composed lady called Maria. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there does not seem to be any error. The seat that Mr. Jordan Carter is assigned to is located here." The lines of Eleanor's lips became more pressed together. "That is really ridiculous. Take a look at him. There is no question that he cannot afford to be here. You are obligated to relocate him." While the guy, whose name was Jordan, had been peacefully browsing through his phone, he suddenly glanced up, his demeanor remaining calm but his eyes remaining alert. "Is there a problem?" he inquired, maintaining a calm tone in his voice. The words, "Yes, there is a problem," came out of Eleanor's mouth. "You're not welcomed in this place. It's not like people like you simply walk into first class without any effort. Considering that I have already spent a significant amount of money for this seat, I should not be forced to share it with someone who obviously does not deserve it." The cabin became completely quiet. A number of other passengers exchanged nervous looks, uncertain of whether they should interfere or remain out of the situation. Maria, the flight attendant, attempted to diffuse the situation by opening her lips, but Jordan intervened by raising his hand and preventing her from doing so. It was a calm yet forceful tone that he used when he stated, "Let me handle this." He switched his attention to Eleanor, maintaining a steady look. "You believe that I am not a part of this community because of the way that I look?" Laughing, Eleanor smiled. "It's not only about how pretty you are. In a word, it is everything. It is very evident that you are not first-rate material. If you are here, it is likely because you have received a free upgrade, or even worse, you have sneaked in. Whatever the case may be, I will not tolerate it." A smirk played over Jordan's lips as he leaned back in his seat from the chair. "There is one thing that you are absolutely correct about. I did not pay for this seat." A triumphant glow could be seen in Eleanor's eyes. "Oh, yes. That seemed obvious to me. Maria, see to it that he is removed from the premises." Nevertheless, Jordan was not yet done. "Because I am the owner of the airline," he said once again, "I did not pay for this seat." The cabin was filled with gasps of shock. Eleanor's complexion became quite pale. She stuttered, "What?" in response. This was not a credit card. Rather, it was an identity badge that included Jordan's name, a picture of himself, and the emblem of the airline. Jordan dug into his pocket and drew out a sleek black card. While he was holding it up for her to see, he introduced himself as Jordan Carter, Circuit Officer of Skyline Airways. Here is my airline, and here is the seat that I am assigned. For all intents and purposes, ma'am, you are the one who does not belong in this place." Eleanor's lips moved back and forth, as if it were a fish that had been disoriented. She hushed. "I didn't know," as she said. It was Jordan's voice that sliced through the tension like a dagger. "Of course you didn't," he assured them. "When you took a single glance at me, you immediately formed conclusions that were founded on nothing but your own private prejudices. According to your own narrow-minded notions of who belongs in first class, you evaluated me based on my looks, my race, and your own personal preferences. To tell you the truth, however, first class is not just about financial considerations. The issue is one of respect. As for you, Eleanor, you have not shown any." The other passengers started muttering behind their breath, with some of them nodding their heads in agreement, while others gave Eleanor glances of disapproval. Maria, the flight attendant, became the first person to come forward. "Would you want me to provide Miss Whitmore with transportation to a different seat, Mr. Carter?" Jordan made a head-shake motion. "The answer is no, that won't be required. You are free to keep her. But I really hope that she learns a lesson from this, as well as from everyone else here. The practice of judging someone based on their outward looks is never a smart idea. On the other hand, you never know who they may be." This caused Eleanor's cheeks to flush with embarrassment, and she slid back into her seat. Her prior arrogance was replaced by a passive embarrassment, and she remained silent for the remainder of the journey. Jordan, in the meanwhile, went back to his phone, maintaining his composed manner that was unshaken. Jordan rose up to depart as soon as the jet touched down, but not before he gave Eleanor one more look before leaving. In a low voice, he expressed his hope that you had gained some knowledge today. Due to the fact that the world is undergoing transformations, individuals such as yourself are falling behind. Eleanor was left to struggle with the burden of her own prejudices once he went off the aircraft with that decision. Another passenger's tweet that went viral helped disseminate the news of the tragedy very rapidly. Jordan Carter became a symbol of grace under pressure, a guy who used his position not to flaunt his authority, but to teach a useful lesson. He accomplished this by using his position to teach a lesson. The CEO of the airline received a lot of praise for the way he handled the problem, which led to an increase in the amount of support to the airline. Concerning Eleanor, the reaction to her actions was prompt. As a result of her company, a prominent legal firm, terminating its relationship with her, she became the focus of a great number of articles that discussed privilege and racism. The most profound transformation, however, was perhaps the one that occurred inside herself. Her preconceptions were called into question for the very first time in her life, and she came to the realization that genuine class is not about riches or rank, but rather about how one treats other people. The narrative of what started out as a moment of ugliness evolved into a tale of personal development, atonement, and the strength that comes from humility. In order to remind us all that first class is not only a seat on an aircraft, but rather a way of life, it is occasionally necessary to have someone go through a humiliating experience. The tale of Jordan Carter and Eleanor Whitmore generated a sensation all around the world in the days that followed the aircraft on which they were found. There was a cultural discourse about race, class, and decency that Jordan found himself at the center of. It was taken up by news sources, and social media was flooded with hashtags such as #FirstClassGrace and #CheckYourPrivilege. Jordan, on the other hand, was not the kind of person who sought the limelight. For as long as he could remember, he had been a reserved person who felt more at ease in boardrooms than on chat programs. However, he was aware that he had a duty to confront the issue while he was serving as the chief executive officer of Skyline Airways. This obligation extended beyond his business to include the millions of individuals who identified with the narrative he shared. It was not with the intention of condemning Eleanor that he convened a news conference. Rather, he wanted to convey its message of togetherness and progress. He started out by saying, "What happened on that flight was unfortunate," while maintaining a steady and calm tone in his voice. Additionally, it is an occasion for each and every one of us to contemplate the way in which we see one another. It's not only about income or color when it comes to prejudice. The tales we tell ourselves about who belongs where, the assumptions we make about others, and the categories we place them in are all important. He stopped, staring out at the multitude of cameras and reporters who were around him. It would have been possible for me to use my position to further humiliate Miss Whitmore, but that is not who I am or what I do. My goal is that this time will serve as a reminder that we are all human beings. Errors are not uncommon among us. What is important is what each of us does next. The audience erupted in applause, and the words that Jordan said reverberated well beyond the confines of the news conference as they were spoken. The grace and humility that he had motivated a great number of individuals to evaluate their own prejudices and work toward being better. The repercussions was painful for Eleanor, but it was the essential thing to do. Her legal firm, which was keen to remove itself from the controversy, decided to put her on leave for an undetermined period of time. As her friends and co-workers became further distant from her, her social circle, which had previously been comprised of people who shared similar values, narrowed. Even her relatives had a difficult time reconciling the lady they believed they knew with the different version of her that had been made public. Nevertheless, in the middle of the humiliation and the seclusion, an unanticipated event had place. Eleanor started to introspect. It was the first time in her life that she addressed the preconceptions that she had carried with her throughout her life. These were biases that she had received from her upbringing, that were reinforced by her surroundings, and that she had never questioned. She found herself going through the various stories and comments that were posted about the tragedy one evening. It was painful to hear the words, but they also stirred something special inside her. Upon coming to the realization that she needed to begin with herself in order to alter the narrative, she began her efforts. For assistance in unpacking her prejudices and gaining a better understanding of the consequences of her behavior, Eleanor sought out to a diversity and inclusion consultant. Slowly, she started to change. Despite the fact that it was not an easy process since she had to face unsettling realities about herself and the world around her. After a few months had passed, Jordan happened to receive an unexpected email. The message came from Eleanor. "Respectfully, Mr. Carter, in spite of the fact that I do not anticipate your forgiveness, I thought it necessary to make contact with you. The events that transpired on the trip served as a wake-up call for me. The previous several months have been spent by me contemplating the acts I took and the beliefs that brought me to that particular point in time. I have been working with a consultant to get a better understanding of my internal biases, and while I am aware that I still have a long way to go, I am determined to put in the effort necessary to accomplish this goal. I just wanted to express my gratitude to you. The elegance and poise that you displayed in that circumstance taught me more than any lesson could ever hope to impart. You demonstrated to me that genuine strength is found in compassion, and that when we are prepared to address our shortcomings, we have the ability to bring about change. One day, I hope that I may be able to make apologies for my actions. Nevertheless, until that time comes, I will continue to work toward being a better person. Most sincerely, it was Eleanor Whitmore." When Jordan finished reading the email again, he did so with a little grin pulling at his lips. He was not the kind of person to harbor resentment, and he respected Eleanor's bravery in making the effort to do so. He made the decision to answer. "Greetings, Eleanor. Regarding your message, I am grateful. Alteration is not simple, but it is well worth the effort. Your desire to better yourself and your honesty are both very much appreciated. Utilize your voice and your position to advocate for understanding and inclusiveness if you are serious about making reparations. I would advise you to do this. I am of the opinion that your actions speak louder than words, and I feel that you have the capacity to make a significant impact. I hope that your path is filled with success and happiness. I am Jordan Carter. Eleanor took the advice that Jordan had given her to heart. In order to serve as a cautionary tale and a demonstration of the efficacy of self-reflection, she started working with groups that advocated for both diversity and inclusiveness. A training curriculum on cultural sensitivity and unconscious prejudice was developed for workers of Skyline Airways, which she collaborated with to design. While all was going on, Jordan continued to run Skyline Airways with the same honest and humble demeanor that had characterized him from the beginning. It was a reminder that everyone, regardless of color, class, or background, deserved respect, and the event that occurred on the flight became a cornerstone of the company's beliefs. A number of years later, the narrative of Jordan and Eleanor was still presented, but this time it was not portrayed as a story of struggle, but rather as a story of development and redemption. A reminder that even in the midst of ugly situations, there is the possibility of beauty. It became a symbol of optimism. That discrimination is something that can be unlearned, and that genuine class is not judged by money or rank, but rather by the desire to change and the bravery to recognize our own shortcomings. Eleanor, Jordan, and everyone else who listened to their tale went on a journey of change as a result of what started out as a disagreement on a plane. Because, in the end, it is not about where you sit, but more about how you rise to the occasion.